Good afternoon. I'm here with my guest, Sheree Pollock, and I welcome you here today, Sheree.
Thanks,
Here
Doug.
on Poet to Poet, Writer to Writer. Now, although Sheree's not a poet or a writer per se, she is an extremely creative person, and this is what this program is all about, creativity. And Sheree and I have worked with each other on and off throughout the years, over 30 years, even though we're only in our 20s, at a psychiatric hospital outside of Boston, a very prominent one affiliated with Harvard. And I've worked in my capacity as a mental health counselor. I've worked with countless patients on staff on both locked and unlocked settings. And one of the most creative of these people I've worked with is Sheree Pollock, a veteran psychiatric nurse. And Pollock, I view as a very dramatic personality, and she uses her knowledge of theater, literature, gardening, and other creative passions to engage the patients on a more human level. The minute she walks through the door, her presence is known. And she's not too shy to quote Betty Davis or Joan Crawford or belt out a few lyrics from her Judy Garland song to make her point. She's a natural storyteller and thespian, and makes what can often be a purely clinical experience into a richer milieu. So I have some questions for you here. That's what we do at Poet to Poet, Writer to Writer. You write your ultimate goal, you've written me, is that your ultimate, because we've discussed this over the weeks, before the show, and you just said, you told me that your ultimate goal is to engage clients in an authentic way. I mean, what do you mean by that?
Okay. Well, when a person comes into a psychiatric hospital, they're demoralized and they feel very much less than a person. And they have stereotypes in mind, what people must think of them. And my goal is to connect with them as a person to another person. We both have dignity, we both have respect, and we're going to go forward from there. We all have, pain in our life that we have to work through and heal. And so I try to get that message across to them.
Okay. In fact, isn't the statistic 1 out of 4 people are affected by mental illness at some point in their life? I believe that's...
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's pervasive.
It is pervasive.
Yeah. And we've seen people from all walks of life, from homeless people to captains of industry to artists to, whatever, who have been affected by it. So,
yeah.
So it's no shame.
No.
Now, I've noticed you bring, your creative flair, even to the physical environment. Explain your philosophy and how you do it. And we're talking about on the ward or on the unit where we work. How do you do it? I mean, and I noticed you're very sensitive to that.
I'm very sensitive to decoration and design. What I like to do is get people involved, the people that are living there, the clients or the patients who are living there at the time. I like to get them involved and get their input. Doesn't this chair look crazy here? Where else do you think it belongs? And when the people get involved and improve their environment, Doug, they feel great.
Well, how do you improve one? Give me an example.
Well, I just walk through the environment.
I'm talking the indoor.
Yes, I change whatever I don't think is aesthetically pleasing to me,
All right, well, give me an example.
Well, if there's a plant that looks like it doesn't belong there, it's too large for the dish that it's in. If there's flowers that have gone bad, they need to be gotten rid of. If there's food, I like to put a lot of food out for people to make them feel like they can just kind of snack and be with each other, So if there's no food out and I go get food and put it out, make a display for people to eat, that kind of thing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you also...
I can also set up a TV, with a movie to get people involved in the movie at the time.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Are there any sort of trappings that you brought on in the unit to liven it up or to give it a better atmosphere? I mean, I know you've suggested furniture type of shaker furniture or something?
No, not shaker furniture.
What was it?
I've suggested a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, I've suggested color themes, designs. I've suggested photographs, getting rid of some photographs that might not look so, you know, aesthetically pleasing.
You mean the stern-looking nurses from the 1890s?
The Victorian pictures,
right,
of a mental hospital. Yeah, I'd like to get rid of that.
Uh-huh.
Make it more, you know, comfortable, upscale, friendly, clean. You know, someplace you want to be,
Right.
and someplace you want to have visitors come and visit.
Mm-hmm.
A client mentioned that the other day, that we had food that she could offer her guests, and it made her feel great, because it made her feel like, look, I'm not staying somewhere that's someplace to be ashamed of. I'm proud of where I'm staying. I'm proud of the treatment I'm receiving, and I can share something really great with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Okay. Now, you, like me, are a fan of movies, and often you organize movie groups for the clients and have an ongoing conversation about the characters, their conflicts, their dilemmas. Well, first tell me about that. Tell me about how that works for you. I mean, there's a reason you have movie groups. It's not for your enjoyment. And it's also almost, some ways it can be a diagnostic tool. In some ways, you know, it's a therapeutic tool. Give me your take on it.
Well, I think that some of the reason why movie groups are successful is that people can look at a character on the film, and they might be able to identify with that character, and maybe that character has something in common with them. And so they can talk about that character. It's a safe way of talking about themselves, perhaps, without disclosing too much information about themselves. It's also, you know, a good film is all about being a human being. And that's what we all share.
Mm-hmm. A good film is, what do you mean by that, about being a human being?
Well, a good film will show you different aspects of a person or a relationship or a situation, you know, different facets. Oh. And that can engage anybody. Mm-hmm. in thinking about themselves, their life, a particular situation that they were in, mm-hmm. and that they may have something in common with the person on the screen is very validating. Okay.
Now, are there any specific movies recently that you've seen or with clients that have been evocative, or, you know?
We just saw that wonderful movie on Sunday. Yeah. What was the name of that movie?
Can't remember. Yeah. But it dealt with relationships, you know, death,
the environment, gardening, and there was just so happened that someone who was there was very much into those exact things. That's right, weren't they? Yes, they were.
So it was a. And that person started to talk about issues and things like that, right?
Right.
As a result of this, you know, evocative movie with its.
I can't remember the name of the movie.
But it was with Daniel Day-Lewis and some other people. Yeah. It was a very good one. But any specific movies in general over the years? You've watched a lot of movies. That, you know, I think you said something about there was some sort of Michael Jackson movie.
This Is It. Michael Jackson's This Is It concert was the first movie that we played for the people where we work, and it made people speechless. It made people feel like they had been through a whole journey together as a group, that they had witnessed this spectacular talent, and also the loss of that talent. And it was heavy. The environment was heavy, and the people couldn't stop talking about it for the whole week. Mm-hmm. The clients, they were so touched in so many different ways. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think Michael Jackson would be such an iconic figure for the psychiatric patient?
Because I think Michael Jackson overcame a lot of pain in his life and wanted to give so much so that you, as an audience, you can't help but feel that. Same with Judy Garland. She wanted the same thing. She overcame so much pain and gave to her audience. Both of them just, you know, really,
Above and beyond.
Above and beyond, but were really able to touch individual people.
And an artist should touch individual people and should have a sense of universality, the common struggles of the everyday guy or gal. Right, and Jackson was the epitome of that. Despite being flawed like we all are, you know, we're not perfect saints or anything like that. Obviously he had his problems.
And also the loss, the way he died and his loss also touched home with these, you know, some of the clients. Because some of the clients, you know, when people are depressed, they think about death. And here was somebody who really did die. You know, it's not a theoretical notion. He really literally died. So it was heavy.
It was heavy. Now, Sheree, you're a natural storyteller, and you do have a way, you know, that you can keep the clients engaged, keep me engaged with your dramatization, your cadences, the way you present a story. Tell me how you hone this ability and how it plays out in the psychiatric setting.
This is a tough question.
I ask tough questions.
You ask tough
but
questions.
Give it the best you can.
All right.
We've got plenty of time, so.
All right. Well, let's see.
First off, the first part of the question is, how, you know, obviously, this started, you know, this didn't suddenly start in the second half of your career or anything like this. It started when you were a kid.
Telling stories?
I mean, didn't you have, you told me that even as a young girl, you had this ability or passion for being on stage or being dramatic or telling things.
Right. Well, as a 5-year-old, I thought that Judy Garland was, you know, she just touched me with her talent for singing, for drama, for hanging in there when things got tough and just just diving right through. And so, yeah, I think that the drama that I saw with Judy Garland and also with the films that I grew up with certainly did make an impact on me and engaged me. And that's what my goal is with the clients that I work with. My goal is to engage them on any kind of level. Get them out of their isolation and out of their withdrawal. So
and that goes back to the oral tradition, right? I mean, the oral tradition goes back to, you know, way, way back there in ancient times.
Yes.
People sit around the campfire and tell stories.
Yeah.
And something comforting. Or the child, the mother's breast, you know, say, "Tell me a story, Mommy," as we saw in that, this was the father, but, you know, tell me a
That's
story.
right.
Something's very comforting about the human voice. And the way
Jack and Rose, or Rose and Jack
yeah.
was the name of this.
Something's comforting about the human voice. I mean, not if you have some shrill, you know, but you know how to project yourself and
Thank you.
I mean, is this a conscious thing you do?
No, it's just.
It just comes to you.
effortless.
It just comes to you naturally.
Yeah.
What stories have you used? I mean, you use stories from your own life often.
I like to tell funny stories that have happened to me that are kind of funny. You know, for example, I recently was stopped by the Belmont police, and I told the Belmont police, because it was late at night, I was stopped by I'm going to tell you the story now. I was stopped by the Belmont police. It was late at night. He appeared to not want to give me a ticket, but it appeared that he felt he had to give me a ticket. And there was this huge conflict that he was having with that. And
you told the story to the patients?
I told the story to the patients. And the patients, they loved the story. Of course, they loved that I didn't get the ticket. But that wasn't my point. My point was, look at this police officer. Here he is. Just think about it. He's waiting for people to make the wrong move so that he can give them a ticket, right? So then now I come up, I fall in the trap. I make the wrong move, and his job is to give me the ticket, but because I'm a nurse, he found out that I was a nurse. He felt he shouldn't give me the ticket. So it was this conflict that he was having, and the patients thought that was really funny.
And the mere fact that you share something personal, it's not all clinical.
No.
The mere fact that you're sharing something personal helps you, bond with the client, and as you say, human.
It's human.
It's
very funny.
Human. It's human.
It's
you're
human.
you have your problems. Everyone has their problems,
Yeah.
and you deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But the patients wouldn't let me forget it.
Oh yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. And that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I think that's good.
Yeah. Also, it's not strictly clinical, Doug, so I don't hide behind a sterile kind of facade. I talk about myself when
And
it's
that's
appropriate.
true. A client will know when you patronize them or you're not reaching them in human language. So often we see staff, and not particularly where we work, hopefully, but they just have this very clinical approach, and there's not a sense of warmth coming through, and
Right.
And things like that.
So a client will feel like they're sharing
Yeah.
so much about themselves and their pain and their humiliations, and the other person who's listening isn't doing anything, giving anything back.
Right.
They can feel judged.
It just reminded me when I was working on a locked ward at the said hospital that we work at. I wrote a poem about this. I wasn't wearing my badge to identify me, and I was cleaning a table. And someone who didn't know me came out and said, "You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job." And I just felt I felt the patronization coming.
Oh.
And I was put in the place of a patient.
Oh.
I got a good poem out of that also. But it just shows you, talk to people like you talk to, any human being.
Right.
And, you have to be clinical, of course. There's certain things you
Right.
can't bridge, but there's a fine
Exactly.
line, and that's where the skill someone like you has. You're able to, not go over the line, but yet still be on a human level, right? So, okay, now.
I try.
You're in a sense are in the fashion industry. You do have a small fashion industry, and you're dressed very fashionably, and you're always dressed fashionably.
Thank you.
You're dressed in a very distinctive way, and in a way that could hardly be called, like scrubs, Tell me, what is your philosophy behind that? Why? I know you like to dress that way, but the job could be dirty at times. But you make a point of coming in dressed in a certain fashion.
Yeah. Well, again, it's an idea of not being different than being purely clinical, being more human, more hopeful. I hope that people will look at me and think, well, it does happen actually. I have a dress like that. I want that. Let's
And
just engage.
it starts a conversation.
Let's engage. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you try to do? Give me some of your fashion sense. What do you try to do with your clothes, or?
My fashion sense?
I don't know from fashion. Obviously, you can see me. People know me. I'm a slob, but you, tell me.
I think if I think about it, I try to project a softness, yet a caringness.
For instance, how would you wear this outfit you're wearing?
I would wear this to
And what
work.
would that project? The pearls, the simple string of pearls, the black dress.
It's kind of elegant.
Yeah. Yet.
Yet it's.
But someone might say, well, what are you going to the opera or something?
Why? Because I'm wearing pearls.
Yeah. No.
Everybody can wear pearls.
Okay. Okay.
Also, I think it projects a certain competence and a certain confidence that I have about myself, that I want people to know that about me. If they have a problem of any kind, I want the client to feel that there's somebody that they can come to, and that they will come to me.
And I agree with you totally, because in the classroom, a lot of people just dress extremely, but I always wear a sports coat, because that, just you walk around with a suit on, or, people treat you differently like if you didn't. And if you're trying to portray some authority, if you come in like a schlub without a suit
Yeah.
or a sports jacket, I feel,
Yeah.
that you're, it adds a little something.
Yeah.
It separates you. And, even though I engage students and all that, and I still
Yes.
want to, the sports jacket is important.
It's a certain professionalism.
Yeah, yeah.
An unstated professionalism.
Right. Now, you were very influenced by Maxwell Jones, and who supported the concept of a therapeutic community. Can you tell me a little about this?
Yes. In the 1950s, Dr. Maxwell Jones worked in England and came to this country also, and actually worked with psychopaths. But
What
had
are
this,
psychopaths for the general? Criminals, right?
criminals,
Right.
and had this notion of people, all clients, patients, and people who work with them, staff, are all individuals and are all equal. And this clinical milieu was thought of as a social kind of therapeutic environment, and whereby people's issues would play out within this context. And hopefully the clinicians would be skillful enough to be able to pick up on these issues as they play out in the social milieu, and talk about them and get people to see themselves in a different way, in an unguarded way, and hopefully grow from that,
Okay. Okay. So, I was going to ask you, do you think there's enough emphasis on the client's creativity in the psychiatric setting? I mean, you've worked in many various settings, and I've run poetry groups for years, and I still do, where we work. And there used to be a bigger component in a lot of places, like a huge. I think in years ago, I'm not just talking about where we work, but everywhere there used to be more money.
Right.
And that's the first thing to go. And that's the first thing to go. Right. So do you think there's too much of an emphasis on, drug therapies, and is there enough emphasis on addressing the patient's spiritual and creative needs?
Well, I don't know, Doug. I mean, I think that people come and go so quickly here. It's a quote from The Wizard of Oz, but people do come and go so quickly from the setting that most probably their creativity is not emphasized. However, when people stay longer, we can help them get in touch with their creative side. And we certainly have done that.
Okay.
With photographers and writers and painters. It's important, isn't it?
It is. Well, I think it is.
Yeah.
And I try to, if clients are interested, I always try to do poetry workshops or things of that nature, and have published clients
Yes, you have.
over the years, and
they feel really happy
they feel
and
like
good.
it feels a sense of accomplishment in the
Yes,
New York Times of Somerville, the Somerville News. But we have a few more minutes, so getting back, you've had an interesting work history. I mean, you've not only been a nurse, you've been in other creative fields.
Right.
Could you talk a bit about that?
Well, sure. I've been in the jewelry business, the retail jewelry business, fine jewelry, jewelry design. I've had my own jewelry business. I studied gemology, what else? I've worked in hairdressing, and I've also had my own garden design business.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what else.
Tell me about designing jewelry. That's interesting.
Yeah. I used to design pearl jewelry for the retail environment.
Okay.
That was a lot of fun.
Tell me, what is involved?
Well, what did it involve?
Yeah.
It involved choosing the cultured pearls to use, choosing the clasps, choosing the color metal. You know, I worked with diamonds and, fine jewelry.
Are diamonds a girl's best friend? Or?
Diamonds are
Yeah.
a girl's best friend.
Okay.
And putting them all together, in a way that would sell.
Okay. So there was a mix of the artist and the business.
Business, yes.
And also you said a gardening design?
I had a gardening
Tell
design,
me about that.
yeah. I would go into, people would hire me to look at their outside environment and design a garden.
And
for
how
them.
did you get your reputation that people would hire you? I mean,
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever go to a design, a gardening,
No.
landscaping
No.
type thing?
No.
So just a word of mouth.
Yeah, and also I've gardened in New England for many, many years.
Okay. And you.
So trial and error.
Did we talk a bit about some of the gardening experiences on where we work that you've had with? I mean, I didn't really touch on that. No. Tell me a bit.
Well, way back, I designed the garden for the place where we work, and it was beautiful. We had morning glories growing up, trellises, mandevilla vines in full bloom, Nicotinia sylvestris growing, 5 feet high, really dramatic plants. Very successful. We were very successful.
Mm-hmm. And how did the clients react to that?
It's like magic.
Yeah. So how so? Tell me what.
The garden's like magic.
What's that?
The garden can be like a magical place.
Okay.
It can be an idealized environment. Okay. So it really lifts people's spirits. And it lifted clinicians' spirits also.
There's something about that. I mean, it's all asphalt or just all clinical. There's no, I mean, why do they even, they put, I don't even know if that's a real plant, but,
I don't think it's real plant.
Yeah, but I mean, even just looking at something that's,
green.
From nature. We're so often divorced from nature, and so to have that, and where we work is, has a lot of, I think it was designed by Olmsted, so there's a lot of thought put into the landscape, and in fact, it was thought of of a place, a respite from demanding city. Boston and all around there, a natural setting, which was deemed very important.
I remember we had a client, Doug, that couldn't really put a lot of feelings into words and was had brute strength. And one day I asked him, could he take the tree that we had indoors that was kind of not doing so well, could he plant it outside? Now, I knew it was going to be hard for him to do because the earth is really packed around where I asked him to plant the tree. But he was up for it, and he did plant that tree. And he did a great job, and he felt on top of the world.
Well, thank you very much, Sheree. It was a pleasure to have you here, and it's a pleasure working with you all.